finance topics, including credit and debt, saving and budgeting, paying for college, mortgages and home ownership, as well as entrepreneurship and wealth building. Lynette helps organizations of all kinds develop and roll out high-quality financial literacy programs and campaigns. To learn more about Lynette, visit her free advice site, askthemoneycoach.com. I'll say that again in case anyone is writing that down. Askthemoneycoach.com, or connect with her on social media via LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Without further ado, we welcome Ms. Lynette Kalfani-Cox. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and it's a pleasure to join you all tonight. I'm super appreciative for the sponsorship from the 5 chapters, not just one, but 5 chapters from the National Coalition of Black Women. This is an important topic and an important time for all of us to really think about our finances, because we know that we're facing not only the public health crisis that has made itself known with COVID-19, but also the resulting financial crisis as well. So let me sort of launch right in here and tell you a little bit very quickly about how we're going to go with tonight's session. I'm going to present for about 1 hour, and then afterwards we will have a Q&A session. As has already been mentioned, we'll have chat moderators who are collecting your questions, so feel free to post your questions in the chat box. And at the end, we'll spend about 15 minutes or so just on Q&A. So I don't want you to think that I'm not hearing you or getting it if you're posting your questions and you're not getting responses in real time. I also want to let you know that some of what I'm going to share with you tonight includes a lot of resources, and you'll see websites and links and some toll-free numbers, etc., for you to call. Don't feel like you have to scurry away and grab a pen or something. I really want you to stay engaged with me, connect with all of us here, and really take part in this conversation in a meaningful way. We have prepared a resource list for you, the same exact resource list that I'm going to kind of briefly go over in different parts during this presentation. So just trust and know we've got you covered here. We're going to make sure that you get all of the tools that you need in order to succeed financially, okay? So without further ado, let me go ahead and take you to the formal part of the presentation here. And I'll let you guys make sure you tell me if you're seeing everything just the way that I want it to be seen. Somebody let me see in the chats if you're seeing the slideshow version. Is that correct? Good deal. I see a lot of thumbs up. Okay, great. So I've already been introduced. You folks know that I'm Lynette Kalfani-Cox, the Money Coach. I want to make sure that you know that you can connect with me. If some of you want to reach out to me on social media after this or connect with me in other ways, as has been mentioned, my husband and I co-own a financial education company, themoneycoach.net. That's our LLC, and it's the parent company of our business. We own and operate 2 subsidiaries, our free financial advice site, askthemoneycoach.com, and a video-based platform, Money Coach University, where I offer coaching, group programs, some free classes as well as paid classes. But then you can connect with me as well just on social media, whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, Twitter, and all of that. Everything you'll find me either through my full name, Lynette Kalfani-Cox, or the Money Coach. Okay, so let's kind of keep it moving on there. I also want to tell you about me personally. I think it's always good for participants to know who's exactly instructing them. I don't want to tell you about, I was on Oprah and all that good stuff. That's all fine and good. But I want you to know about me personally, that in many ways, ladies, I'm just like you. I'm a sister. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I have 3 fantastic kids. I'm a business owner for those of you who own a business. And yes, I am a Christian and a proud one, a faithful believer. And so all of this sort of defines who I am, not just my professional background as a money coach. I recognize, of course, that many of us are in different stages of our lives. And when we thought about putting together this program for you, we really thought long and hard about the best way that we could be helpful. One of the reasons why we've made this such a robust program is that we recognize that in general, a lot of us sisters are in different stages. Some of us amid this COVID-19 outbreak, we're like, look, I just need to get some cash flow. What? I got to stabilize things. I need to survive because maybe I dealt with job loss. Maybe my income has been slashed. Maybe my hours have been cut back. In some way, this crisis might have severely impacted you, and now you're looking for opportunities to stabilize things. We get that, and I'm going to make sure that I address your needs in full tonight. Some of you are like, you know what? I still have a job. Thank the Lord Almighty. Everything is, kind of afloat for me still, but I want to keep it that way. I don't want to lose ground here. In fact, I don't want to make any foolish mistakes because the future is uncertain. I want to preserve what I have and know about the best money moves that I can and should be making. I've got you covered tonight too. We're going to talk to you about how you sustain your finances. And then some of you might be more fortunate than others. You might be saying, you know what? I've actually seen opportunity, room for growth. If you can tell from this chart, I showed these three women, Black women at various stages, no matter what you might be doing financially, personally, or professionally. A lot of us tend to kind of put on that face. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Paula, you might know what I'm talking about. We can put on that smile, right? We can put on that happy face. Anything could be going wrong in your life. It could be that you lost your job, you're sick, you're dealing with issues in your marriage or in your relationship. But in general, Black women, we tend to try to hold it all together and put on that happy face for the world. And we could be a millennial who's doing her thing in the career. You might be a Gen Xer like me who has kids, married or single, or maybe you are a baby boomer or a retiree and you are at a certain stage in your life, a little more seasoned person in your phase of life. But the fact of the matter is we're all in different stages, not just economically, but at different stages of our lives. And that matters a lot because some of us, honestly, we're putting up this, I won't call it a front, but a certain image. And tonight is about breaking down some of those images. Tonight, I want you to feel like you're in a safe space. So there's no blame. There's no judgment. There's no discrimination against you. This is really a platform and a venue in which you can feel comfortable to share, because it's not just going to be me presenting. I also want to get your feedback. I want to let you have the opportunity to share, because each one of you in a stage where whatever you've learned from your successes and even your failures, it's a lesson. It can help someone else along the way. So I want you to feel comfortable in knowing that you can share. And I want to kick it off here with, in terms of sharing with some of you, just thinking through this first question. And it's a kind of a poll that I'm asking each of you to answer. I want you to sort of share. And again, don't feel there's no shame in any of this, right? I want you to be able to share where you are, what phase of life it is for you, in terms of you saying, you know what, I'm in that phase where I need to stabilize things. Or maybe you're at that point where you're saying, I want to sustain. Maybe you're at the point where you're saying, I'm ready to succeed even more and take it to a higher level. So go ahead and drop a quick little note in the chat box and just kind of say very quickly where you are. Some of you should know sort of reluctance, I hope, to say, okay, so I see some comments come in, succeed, a higher level, etc. I'm a small business owner. I want to sustain and succeed. I see a couple of stabilizers. Okay, that's great. So we have a mix of folks, right? We have a range. As I said, Black women, we're not a monolith. There's a range of our experiences, the phases that we're going through. But again, rest assured, we're going to talk about each one of your needs tonight. And I really hope that this session will prove valuable to you. The reason I wanted us all to kind of chime in here and talk about what it is that we're currently experiencing in this personal stage in our own lives is I wanted us to recognize some commonality. And so no matter what stage you're in, if you're in the stabilizing and surviving stage, or the sustaining stage, or the trying to succeed even further stage, all of us, frankly, face some common circumstances. All of us deal with structural inequality. All of us deal with economic inequality, racism, The fact is, each one of us faces the wealth gap, to a certain extent, the wage gap and the gender gap. We know that women in general make 75 cents for every dollar that men earn, and it's even less for us sisters. We know that Black women have a fraction of the net worth that our white counterparts do. So again, regardless of the state that you're in, recognize that all of us are facing some very common issues, okay? So how do we go about starting this process that I've described in terms of either stabilizing, sustaining yourself, or succeeding? Let's kick it off with some very practical steps that you can take regardless of which stage you're in. If you want to stabilize your finances, right now, it's really all about tapping into the wealth of resources that are at your disposal. And I'm talking about federal resources, state resources, as well as local and other that I'm going to explain further, whether that's community-based, faith-based, and other. This is not the time to stay quiet if you have a need. I'm sure you've heard the expression, a closed mouth don't get fed, right? And so I want all of you to understand and to know that reaching out for those points of assistance where you need help is going to be critical during this time. Now, some of you have already heard about the $2.2 trillion CARES Act, right? That's the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. A lot of talk has been made about this federal quote unquote stimulus measure. I really think about it as an economic relief measure, because it's not like people going out there stimulating the economy, buying cars, going to shopping, staying out at restaurants and stuff. Because we're on lockdown for the most part, we're under a lot of stay-at-home orders. We're not stimulating the economy. With this money that's coming through, we're really just trying to stabilize things. In early March, that was the Coronavirus Preparedness Act. And then in mid-March, with the $3.5 billion Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So part of what I'm bringing you tonight when I'm talking about federal resources that are at your disposal, I'm talking about a combination of what's in all three of these measures, okay? In short, I want you to know the money is out there, and I want to tell you how you can get your own coronavirus cash and get it now. Let me start by outlining 5 ways that you can get coronavirus cash if you want to stabilize your finances. Certainly you've heard about those stimulus checks, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But there's also other things that are longer term and more repeat benefits. So you have unemployment insurance you might be able to tap into, sick pay leave, family leave benefits, and food support or nutrition support as well, okay? Let's walk through what each one of these means for you in terms of the specifics on the money side of it, okay? The stimulus check that they call a stimulus check, really the IRS calls them economic impact payments. Those are the checks that the U.S. Treasury Department and the IRS started sending out last week for people who earn $75,000 or less who are single tax filers. If you are a married couple and you earn less than $150,000, then you qualify to get a stimulus check for $2,400. Those who have children that are age 16 and under, you get an extra $500 check in terms of those stimulus payments. They also prorate your stimulus checks, right? So those of you who actually make above $75,000, if you're single, you can actually still get some stimulus money. It won't be the full $1,200, but if you make as much as $99,000, that's where it caps out and they actually prorate a check to you. Ditto for couples. So if you make above $150,000, but less than $198,000, you'll still get something. It just won't be the full $2,400, okay? But again, I'm emphasizing to folks that we shouldn't be worried so much about the $1,200, although that's money, it helps, no doubt about it. But the other benefits that are in the CARES package and in those other 2 stimulus measures as well give you repeat benefits and long-term financial assistance that you might need. Unemployment compensation, for example, is a state and federal program. It has a variety of resources for folks who are now eligible to claim unemployment. So on the one hand, you might get an average, and this is about the national average of about $380 per week, but the CARES Act actually expanded unemployment benefits in three significant ways. First, it added a $600 federal payment on top of your state benefit. So regardless of what state you're in, if you're in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Delaware, or elsewhere, you also get $600 if you qualify for unemployment benefits on top of your state pay. So almost $1,000 a week. That's actually something good to sustain you. Likewise, they expanded the pool of people who are eligible for unemployment benefits. So in the past, gig economy workers, folks who get 1099s, independent contractors, freelancers, self-employed individuals, they weren't eligible for unemployment benefits. But now, during the COVID-19 outbreak, they are eligible. So if you fall into one of those categories as well, I would encourage you to go ahead and file for unemployment benefits. Then there's sick pay and family leave benefits. Sick pay, again, a federally mandated benefit that covers 100% of your salary up to a maximum of $511 per day. This is for 10 days maximum. So you can do the math and know that the total benefit can cap out at $5,110. This is for those of you who might have been testing positive for coronavirus or COVID-19, the disease that it causes. If a spouse or a household member, somebody in your family has tested positive for it, if you've had to quarantine, if you've been told by a doctor to isolate yourself, etc., you can qualify for sick leave pay, okay? Family leave benefits are also available for folks in that category, or for those who are even doing things like taking care of their kids who are home from school. And those of us who have children know that the schools have been closed, of course. And if you have a child who is age 14 and under, and their school has been closed, again, for 5 days or more, or even if you had a kid, say, in preschool, or an infant who was in daycare, or a young child who was in daycare, and the daycare provider is closed, you can qualify for family leave benefits. Now, this covers 2/3 of your salary, up to a maximum of $200 per day, but it lasts for 10 weeks. So again, that's another great benefit for you to tap into. And then finally, food and nutrition support. Look, the average household in the US spends about $1,000 a month for a family of 4 on food. So that averages out about $250 a person. Now, I know that for a lot of you on this call, you typically would not have, under normal circumstances, been eligible for, or perhaps you never even thought about, SNAP benefits or TANF benefits. SNAP refers to food stamps, essentially, right? It's the Supplemental Nutrition Program. TANF stands for Temporary Assistance to Needy Families. And again, this type of support is available because basically they look at your bank account by and large, and they give income and asset thresholds to say whether or not you qualify. But because so many people have been thrown out of work, had to spend down their savings, etc., you might qualify for those benefits. And I know you guys have seen those videos on TV where the news has shown many, many people lining up to get food, again, because of the unprecedented nature of this crisis. All right, so let me ask you guys again, just kind of quickly here, that stimulus check. Drop a comment in the chat box and let me know. Have you received a stimulus check? Just kind of yes or no. Just tell me real quick here, and I want to just take a little temperature here and know. I see a lot of okay, yes, some no's, yes. A lot of people said no. Okay, it's a mixed bag here. Some saying yes, some saying no. Okay, yes, ma'am. Somebody said okay. So I want you to know that if you're expecting a check, somebody said not yet. You say I'm waiting for it, right? If you are indeed expecting a check, you can log on to the IRS's website. It's irs.gov and go to /get my payment. You'll be able to check on the status of your payment that you might be anticipating. Or most crucially, if you have not filed an income tax return in recent years, like maybe you didn't file for 2019 yet, they did extend the deadline anyway to July 15th. Maybe you didn't file in 2018 and they don't have your information on hand. If you hadn't, say, gotten a refund check or something like that, If you're a recipient of Social Security, you do not have to do this. They will automatically send you your check if you qualify on an earnings basis. But everybody else, if you didn't file or you think they might not have your information, I'm going to encourage you to go to that site, because you can now input your banking data. And listen, ladies, this is super important, because if you don't get your stimulus check that you're anticipating electronically deposited into your bank account, a checking account, a savings account, etc., it's going to be a while. The government has already said that they won't start mailing out checks until May. And they've indicated that the mail process is going to be over several months. So folks are not going to get their mailed stimulus payments until May, June, and July. So I don't want you to have to wait several months if you're counting on that money. So do log onto that IRS website if you need to supply them with your banking data if you think they don't already have it. Okay. All right. Let's talk about unemployment. Give me a quick yes or no here. How many of you have gone ahead, if you have the need, again, if you've had your hours reduced, if your pay has been cut, if you're a small business owner and you're eligible and you have seen a reduction in your income, maybe you just got a pink slip outright. Tell me, among those of you who are joining us in this session tonight, how many of you have? Somebody said, I applied 2 months ago, still no payments. I saw several no's. One said yes. Somebody else, a small business owner. Okay, I see you on this. So I just want to encourage those of you, because it is a process, and I know it's a arduous one. You know, we're hearing reports of so many people say, oh, it's been hours. I was online. I got kicked off. The website crashed. I was on the phone. I get it. I spent an hour and a half, no, really an hour and 45 minutes on the phone with a friend of mine who she lives in New Jersey, which is where I used to live just until last summer. And she was applying for New York State unemployment benefits. And yes, it was an hour and 45 minutes. And yes, she did get kicked off 8 times. But you know what? When it was over with, she finally got to submit her claim. She's been approved. She's getting $1,000 roughly per week from her state benefit and the federal benefit. So that's a lot of money to, you know, to kind of keep things afloat. You'll see here also that I referenced my site, askthemoneycoach.com. I created an article that has every single state in the country that tells you what is the maximum weekly benefit when it comes to unemployment insurance. Along with that, the article tells you the exact website to go to for your state to be able to claim unemployment benefits. Furthermore, I gave you the toll-free number for each one. So again, ladies, I know you're listening from Delaware or from New Jersey or Pennsylvania. If you go to my website, you'll see that article on askthemoneycoach.com. CareerOneStop.org also will point you in the direction to the state agencies where you can file for unemployment benefits. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about housing if you're trying to stabilize things with your finances. I know a lot of people are worried about paying the rent or the mortgage and keeping that roof over their heads. Obviously, amid a global pandemic, really, you don't want to be out on the street. Well, there is good news in the sense that the coronavirus pandemic has resulted in the feds recognizing that we've got to keep people in their homes, right? So one of the things that the CARES Act did is that it provided up to 6 months of payments to be deferred initially for those who have government insured mortgages. So if you have, say, an FHA loan, or if your mortgage is owned by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, you can contact your loan servicing agent or your lender and say, yes, I need a payment deferment. I need a forbearance of some kind. You can initially get 6 months, and then after that 6 months, you can get another 6 months if necessary. So in total, you can put off making mortgage payments up to a year if you need to do so. And again, I want to encourage those of you who are struggling right now, who are in that phase where, look, I just need some cash and some relief to survive. I want to encourage you to, in fact, reach out to your lenders or your loan servicing agents. Almost all banks right now have up either websites where it'll say COVID relief information or coronavirus help page, something to that effect. If they don't offer sort of blanket assistance, like saying you can skip 1 month or 2 months. If they're not offering that to everybody, typically they'll have an 800 number and they'll say, call here, and they'll talk to you about your specific circumstances, and then they'll work out something with you. Okay. So not only that for mortgage, for folks who have mortgages, but also for you renters. I want you to know that you're not going to be thrown out on the street. So right now there's a ban on evictions. Again, this is at the federal level for anybody who, if you're a renter and your landlord, say, has an FHA loan, or their property is, their mortgage is via Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, then they can't turn around. They're getting relief from the government. They can't turn around and evict you. So there's some level of federal protection on that in terms of stopping evictions also at this time. But furthermore, many states, many counties, many local municipalities as well have issued their own ordinances. Right now, while we're on lockdown mode, while these stay-at-home orders are in effect, they've essentially told people, look, you can't be evicting folks right now. We're in the middle of a crisis here, okay? So the key here is ask for help if you need it, especially on the housing front. Now, on the student loan debt front, I know a lot of us have student loan debt. So I want to take a minute here and explain to you the relief that's also available via the CARES Act. Drop me a quick note in the chat and tell me whether or not you have student loans. Just a yes or a no is sufficient. And I'm going to keep talking, but I just want to get a little feedback from you. I know, as a matter of fact, that Black women, we are among the most educated group of Americans in this country. And so a lot of us have either obtained our bachelor's degree, we went to graduate school, or we went back to school, or we left one job and, started a new career, went through a second act. And so we wanted to advance our career prospects oftentimes by getting a degree, right? I know about this firsthand experience. I have a master's degree eons ago. I don't want to tell you how old I am, but suffice to say, when I got out of grad school at the University of Southern California at USC in Los Angeles, I had $40,000 in student loan debt. So I know about this problem too. It took me over a decade to pay them all off. I don't have student loans now, but I know what some of you might be going through. And so let me just take a quick thing in the chat. I see a lot of yeses, a lot of yes. Somebody said yes, unfortunately. Yes, yes. Okay. So yes, a lot of us have student loan debt. And listen, bottom line here, you got relief right now on those federal student loans. And that's the majority of the student loans that are outstanding right now. In America, there's $1.5 trillion. That was with a T, not B. 1.5 trillion in student loan debt outstanding. The vast majority of it, 1.3 trillion, is actually federal student loan debt. So right now, you don't have to make any student loan payments for that federal student loan right now for 6 months. Not for April, May, June, July, August, and September. And no, they're not racking up interest on you for those federal student loans either. They've dropped the interest rate. They've suspended it, essentially, put it down to 0%. Again, that's some cash flow for you. And get this, you might really not even believe this the first time, but I'm not going to tell you wrong, okay? The money coach is not going to lie to you. I had to do a double take and read this over and again to make sure I was really understanding it the first time that I read the CARES Act. And yes, I literally read all 880 pages of the CARES Act. So I wanted to be able to digest it and bring it to audiences just like you. You need to understand that even before little Miss Rona reared her nasty little head, and little Miss Coronavirus, a lot of folks were struggling, if we're honest, even before then. And so we had about 1 in 3 student loan borrowers, and we have 44 million Americans, again, who owe college debt. About 1 in 3 were already struggling and behind on their loans. They weren't necessarily in default status, which is when typically you have not paid for 270 days or 9 months. They might have been in delinquency status 30 days, 60 days, 90 days late, etc. But a big chunk of borrowers are in either delinquency or default. What the government is now doing is looking at the date at which the global pandemic, coronavirus, was declared here in the US a national disaster. And Trump declared the coronavirus a federal disaster March 13th, 2020. So now, since then, anybody who was in default, who had collections activity taken against them, they're now giving you refunds. So if you had your wages garnished, assets or cash taken out of your bank accounts, if bill collectors came after you and took some of your money in that last month and a half or so, they're actually returning to 830,000 student loan borrowers who owed federal debts and who were in default. They're returning $1.8 billion to those folks. If you spread it out, each one of them roughly is going to get over $2,100. So again, don't know if that applies to any of you, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there was significant relief on front with regard to your student loans. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about credit card debt. Because again, I know a lot of y'all have credit card debt. You know I had it too, so I'm not judging, okay? And when I tell you this next thing, don't judge me, okay? I actually had $100,000 in credit card debt alone. I know it's crazy and it sounds crazy and it was crazy. This was back in 2001. And I took 3 years, I paid it all off. And by 2004, I had wiped out that monstrous debt. And then I ended up writing a book about it called Zero Debt, The Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom. It became a New York Times bestseller. Who knew? Well, since then, I did the second edition of Zero Debt in 2010. And then in late 2018, early 2019, we did the third edition of Zero Debt because unfortunately, the debt problem in America has only gotten worse. So again, we have $1 trillion in credit card debt outstanding right now. If you are thinking about your debt and how to handle it, you might be wondering, because I've been getting these questions, whether or not the CARES Act or any of the federal legislation addressed this or gave specific relief. The answer is no, it doesn't. However, in two other ways you can get relief. First, lenders and creditors, credit card issuers, banks, credit unions, etc., they are helping. A payment plan to change your payment due date, to pay interest-only payments, whatever type of relief you think you might need, now is the time to ask your creditors and lenders for that. The CARES Act changes the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And what it does is it specifies that any creditor who makes any kind of a quote unquote accommodation with you on one of your bills, they can no longer report you during this time, once they make that deal with you, to the credit bureaus. They can't report you as late or have a negative mark on your credit report. I'm going to give you at the end of this, we're going to supply you with a 2-page resource list, okay? But I just wanted to very quickly show you for all 3 states, for Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, the main state agencies and the main other areas of support, because we've just covered the federal stuff where you can get assistance if you're trying to survive and stabilize your finances. Through Delaware, you want to go through the Health and Social Services Division. You see the website there and the toll-free number, and they have a lot of resources available. Somebody can't pay your rent, they offer you up to $1,500 in cash assistance to be able to help you with that. Those of you in New Jersey, you want to go through the Department of Human Services. Again, there's the website and the toll-free number. Of course, they're offering SNAP and TANF benefits, even refugee services, if you know folks who've come here and who have a need for that. Pennsylvania, you're going to go through the Department of Human Services. There's a website there and the toll-free number. Again, cash assistance program. If you've lost a job, they have employment and training programs. If you know older folks who have disabilities or others who have disabilities and need that kind of assistance, they're providing that. Aging services. Even if you get into some kind of a legal dispute, maybe with a creditor or somebody else, and you can't afford to pay an attorney, they've got legal services to help you as well, okay? I mentioned earlier that community-based organizations are going to be crucial during this time if you need help to survive and stabilize your finances. Churches, we know that in times of need, many faith-based organizations are really stepping up to the challenge. I'm living now in the greater Houston area, and certainly the church that I've joined, it's called the Church Without Walls. I've been just incredibly impressed and appreciative of the ways in which they've really made a concerted effort to reach out. I mean, they've called us multiple times, literally on the phone, and this is a mega church. They've called several times. They're trying to connect us with life groups and resource groups. They're telling all the members, here's our streaming services to stay connected. So in addition to those faith-based groups and churches, et cetera, there's community foundations and centers, food banks. If you need support, that website you see for feedingamerica.org, it gives you a national directory of food banks. local in your state and in your area, okay? The Community Foundation Public Awareness Initiative, they give you the list to all the foundations in your state. I just want to highlight 3 of them, since I know, of course, all of you ladies are in these 3 states. You can look and find others, but in Delaware, it's the Delaware Community Foundation is the principal foundation there, and they have specifically a strategic response fund to the COVID crisis. In New Jersey, and I'm just highlighting one, all my ladies in New Jersey, you'll find many listed there. The Community Foundation of South Jersey has their own COVID-19 response fund, as does Philadelphia Foundation, who has a COVID response fund as well. And they launched with a huge amount of money, $6.4 million. So again, if you need those resources, I'm going to encourage you to tap into it. All right, so we're going to pivot a little bit here and talk to you ladies who are in that mode where you want to sustain your finances, okay? It really boils down to you doing 5 smart things with regard to saving, spending, investing, donating, and protecting your finances. Let's go through each one of these. Sometimes people say, girl, why I need to save? I got bills to pay today. I can't really be thinking about the future. Well, I'm here to tell you that you do need to plan for the future. You need to plan for your future self. You need to plan for emergencies and unexpected events of all kinds. You need to plan for retirement, that day that may come when you are no longer working and getting an earned income. And of course, you need to save and plan for your goals. Maybe you want to pay for your kids' college education. Maybe you want to get married and pay for a wedding. Maybe you want to start a business, buy a house, invest in property. I don't know, but whatever your personal goals are, chances are there's a price tag attached to them. So we can't forget about saving even amid this coronavirus crisis. So how much should you be saving, or how much have you saved? Let me go back one thing here, just to point out here. In general, you'll hear experts like myself saying, you know, if you have about 3 months worth of all your bills saved up for an emergency, that's doing really good. So let's say your bills each month, I'm just making up a number. Let's say your bills each month are $3,000 a month. Again, everybody's bills are different. But if you have 3 months worth of expenses saved up, that means you have $9,000. I know it's hard to do. I understand that the average person don't even have $500 saved, but I'm just giving you a barometer and kind of a guideline to strive for, because you can and should start saving. If you can't save but $50 a paycheck, $100, whatever it is, the most important thing isn't the dollar value. The most important thing is the consistency, the discipline to be able to save, okay? So let me ask you guys real quick here. Tell the truth. Yeah, tell the truth and shame the devil, ladies, okay? You know, again, this is a no judgment zone. Just real quick, where are you guys right now in terms of having an emergency savings? Any emergency savings at all? And I recognize, I understand that, frankly, a lot of people say, look, I don't really have it. You know what? This is where I am right now. And okay, I'm seeing some of you saying 6 months, 3 months, it needs work. Some of them are like, huh? Like, what savings, girl? Yes, I understand. Somebody said I have a year, 3 months. Okay, understood. So we're all over the place. I get it. And you know what? We're going to get through this crisis, ladies. If you say, look, I don't have any savings at all right now, you're still going to make it through. You're in a network right now. The fact that you got an invitation to join us for this session means somebody cares about you, okay? And so I don't want you to feel like, oh my goodness, I don't have this. No, that's not what this is about. It's about trying to propel you to a higher level with your finances, trying to sustain you through this crisis, okay? All right, when it comes to your spending, I'm going to give you a quick rule of thumb here. This is only a guideline. It's a benchmark. These numbers are fungible. You can kind of move it around a little bit. But let me tell you, if you're saving 10% of your salary and putting it towards either an emergency account or putting it towards your future and investing for retirement or something else, you're doing really well. I'm telling you, if you're saving 10% of your salary, you're doing better than 90% of all Americans, okay? So I know, though, that most of us have bills to pay. So, you know, those essential expenses have to be covered: housing, food, utilities, etc. You have some discretionary costs, though, as well. And you need to think about whether or not, again, during this time of crisis, the things that are going to be cut back on. Now, you know, we're not going to get our hair done right now. We're not going to the spa. We're not getting those nails done. So there's some natural sort of reduction, obviously, that's already happened in terms of discretionary costs, right? I just want you to be mindful about that, though. Okay, on the investing front, and I'm going to get to this a little bit more later as well. I just want you guys to know, because I know a lot of you have been seeing that the stock market has been going crazy during this time of volatility. A couple of pointers and a couple of caveats here. First of all, again, it's not like I am a stockbroker or a licensed professional. I don't sell any stocks or bonds. I don't have any Series 7 or 65, anything like that. So I'm not giving you any specific investing advice, certainly not about here, invest in this stock or that, not at all. I've actually written a book on investing called Investing Success. I do know a lot about investing, but I just want to give you a framework for making good investing decisions, okay? That's my job as a financial educator and as a money coach. I want you to always invest with a goal in mind. You shouldn't just willy-nilly, put money in something without thinking like, what is this money for? Like, what is the purpose of this, right? So the stuff that's in your 401k, your 403b, your 457, your thrift savings plan, etc., you're thinking about that for retirement and for the future. But some other accounts you might have, you might be investing, say, for your, kids' college fund, and et cetera. So you've got to know your time horizon, right? If you have a 6-year-old right now and you say, okay, I'm investing for my daughter's college fund or her college education, then you say, okay, I got about a 12-year time horizon. Then in general, that means you can afford to take on a little more risk. You can afford to look at equities or stocks because, again, your time horizon is longer. It's not a short-term time horizon. It's also important to know, of course, your risk tolerance. I don't care what somebody tells you in terms of being able to make you good money, make you fast money, allegedly, or, help you to get a great return on your investment. At the end of the day, if it's something that you're investing in and it's keeping you up at night, or you're getting a kind of a knot in the pit of your stomach, that is not the investment for you, sister. Because that is telling you, that's the mind and the body's way of telling you that you're being a little too aggressive. If you can't sleep at night, if you're fretting over it, and if you're watching CNBC and looking at the tickers going by every 5 minutes and you're sweating it, and if you don't have sort of clarity of purpose and a sense of calmness about, oh my goodness, you can say, yeah, oh my gosh, the stock market went up or down 1,000 points either way, but I don't want you to think of that as your litmus test for investing. I don't want you to just go in a mode where you're being greedy, and being a little too aggressive, nor do I want you to be fearful and invest too conservatively. And frankly, a lot of Black folks are conservative in their investments. We'll put money in CDs, we'll stick to bonds and things of that nature, but you'll have to think about growth opportunities as well, and that's where stocks come into play, okay? Let's move on. Donating. Now, this is one of those areas where I know we know a lot about this because, sisters, we give a lot. I want to remind you that when it comes to sustaining yourself, again, we're talking about sustaining yourself by saving, spending, donating, investing, and protecting what you have. When it comes to donating, it doesn't always have to be your money, right? You can give your time, you can give your talents. I'm very grateful to all the women who have supported this session tonight. I was so relieved because they've got the chat moderators. These 5 chapters really stepped up to provide the support that I need to be able to do a professional job and to bring you this presentation without having to worry about all the technical side of things, right? So they're donating their time, their talents, right? So I want you to know that it's good for us all to give, but we have to be thoughtful givers. And you can't always give what you don't have, right? Sometimes we give until it hurts. And that's not a good thing during an emergency. Y'all know what I'm talking about, because some of those relatives, right, they're going to come to you. Can I borrow this or that? And you didn't get paid back the last time. You know good and well that somebody who you donating some money or loaning some money to, no, that's going to be, money out the door and down the drain. There's a reason why when you get on the airplane, not now during this crisis, but under normal circumstances, when you get on the airplane and the flight attendant basically says, if something goes down on this plane, put the mask on yourself first, then help somebody else. There's a reason, because you won't be any good to anybody else if you pass out and if you don't have your faculties about you. So we have to think about that as well when we're being judicious in our giving, okay? Protecting. Insurance is a great way to protect what you have. Long story short, if you want to mitigate some of the risks that you might face in life, you need to think about covering yourself, whether that's protecting your income stream with things like disability insurance or protecting those you love with things like life insurance. You likely have life insurance on the job, but let me tell you, it may not be enough. So you may want to look into a supplemental life insurance policy. Typically, your companies are going to offer you 1, maybe 2 times. If they're extremely generous, 2.5, maybe 3 times your salary, probably not. But usually 1 or 2 times your salary, right? If something should happen to you. But the American Council of Life Insurers says that for those of us who have a need for life insurance, that you should typically have about 5 to 10 times your salary, okay? So if you're making $50,000, $250,000 to $500,000 will be the face amount of that life insurance policy, okay? You can get a term policy, you can look at whole life options. Term is your cheapest bet. I just wanted to point out that insurance is one of those things that can protect us. And you certainly don't want to forget about protecting your credit rating during this downturn. I could do a whole session on credit. And in fact, I literally have written a book called Perfect Credit, 7 Steps to a Great Credit Rating. I just want to highlight to you that your credit is an asset. Just like that cash you might have in the bank is an asset, so is your credit rating. You can't afford to let it get ruined during this crisis by doing things like co-signing for somebody else who might not pay the bill and say they're going to pay, and then it ends up ruining your credit score. This is not the time to do that, okay? At the end, the last tip I'll give for those of you who want to sustain yourself, it's all about having a backup plan. It's all about creating a plan B to deal with the unexpected. All kind of stuff can jump off. All kind of things can go wrong. And those of you who've been following me for a long time, you know that I often talk about this concept of the dreaded D's. What are the dreaded D's? It's things like divorce, downsizing, a death in the family, disability, disease, debt. All of these things can totally throw your finances out of whack, right? And right now, in the middle of the coronavirus crisis, we're seeing that Black people in particular, we're being disproportionately impacted, right? We're being affected by the disease itself. We're having higher rates of death and morbidity. Job loss is affecting us more severely. And people who still have their jobs, they're frontline workers in many cases, and even people who are in jobs that are hazardous to do. They might be hourly workers, but still they're helping all of us to be able to deliver the food to us, etc., right? So they're at increased risk. So you've got to be thinking ahead and strategizing. Things like, what if I did lose my job? What if my hours got cut back? What if I got a divorce? Do I have credit in my own name? Do I have my own assets or savings? What if my partner and I, we're safe and stable together? Fine. What if one of us lost the job? You've got to start doing some contingency planning and preparing for the what if scenarios, okay? Let's transition now to talk about those of you who are ready to take it to the next level and succeed and really propel things along with your finances. It all starts with mindset. It starts with the belief that, yes, I got this, or I can do this. And I know that a lot of us do have that mindset, but sometimes we doubt ourselves. We wonder, like, is it the right time? Am I the right person to do this? Is this the right path that I'm choosing, etc.? Have confidence in knowing that once you do your homework, once you tap into that network, and you know your network equals your net worth, I think, in a lot of ways too, right? You should feel confident to go for it, especially if you're already very stable and you've taken the time to shore up so many areas of your finances that we've talked about in terms of knocking out debt, saving, having a cash cushion, things of that nature, okay? So let's go over very quickly some ways in which you can take it to the next level on the investing front, on the real estate front, on the business ownership front, and a couple of other ways. And then I'm going to spend the last 8 or 10 minutes or so here, and then we're going to open it up for questions. All right, so I've already given you a framework for investing overall, right? I want you to understand, though, because I know a lot of you are worried about your 401k or your 403b plans. Again, you've got to expect volatility. That's the order of the day now. You're just not going to be investing in stocks in any way, individual stocks or mutual funds, and not think that you're not going to be subject to high levels of market volatility amid this crisis. That's just how it is right now. But I don't want you to panic. I don't want you to think, oh my goodness, I just saw, on CNBC, or, I heard on Reuters or Bloomberg, the Dow sold off. So many people were asking me, in the early part and even recently, should I just, sell everything? And I was saying, no, don't do that. Don't panic. You don't want to sell when the market is down, because likely you'll be selling at a loss. But also, most of you were talking about stuff that was in your 401k. And I'm like, how old are you? And they would say, I'm 40 years old. And I said, when you plan on retiring? Well, when I'm 65. You got 25 more years, So you want to stay invested and think about the long term. And you also want to use a strategy called dollar cost averaging for those of you who are not anywhere near close to retirement. It's different, of course, if you are knocking on retirement's door, then you want to be more fiscally conservative. You don't want to have as much exposure to stocks. You want to dial back your risk levels. But for everybody else, if you're, say, 55 and under, if okay, I have 10 plus years until retirement, then you can afford to take on a little more risk. Again, what's prudent and what is comfortable for you. But you can also do dollar cost averaging. What does this mean? Essentially, it boils down to you making a commitment to invest. You invest a fixed amount in terms of the funds at fixed intervals. So if you look at your budget and you determine, I can safely invest $250 a month. Maybe that's too much. I can invest $50 a month, $100 a month, $500 a month, whatever your number is. You're going to invest that same exact amount in regular intervals. And if you say, okay, I'm putting it in there, this check that I get on the 3rd of the month and the 20th of the month, great. Every 3rd and every 20th of the month, the 1st and the 15th, it doesn't matter, but you're going to invest regularly. And if it's once a month, that's just fine as well. Let's call it the 10th of the month. The 10th of the month in May, you will invest. In June, you will invest. In July, you will invest, regardless of what the market is doing. What's the point of all of this? Well, it's to keep you from making rash decisions. It's to take the emotion out of the equation. It's to help you not panic and sell or do something that's not wise during times of volatility or when the market is down, and to help you to prevent against greed as well when the market is like, woohoo, having a great party, and you're like, oh, maybe I should do more. No, you shouldn't do more. You stick to the plan. You stick to what you outlined in the beginning in terms of your amount that you're going to invest for dollar cost averaging. And you know what the result is going to be? Over time, you're going to purchase shares at a lower overall price point. And that's the goal here. That's part of the goal, in addition to the benefits that I outlined a moment ago. The goal of dollar cost averaging is to help you to acquire more shares overall at a lower average price point. Okay, let's move forward. Now, again, for those of you who have 401k plans, or even if you have a 403b, or if you have an IRA, I want to make sure that you know about changes to the CARES Act and how it affects your 401k plans, because it affects it in big ways, because they've made significant changes with regard to distributions that you can take and with regard to loans that you can take. So prior to COVID-19 and the passage of the CARES Act, which passed on March 27th, 2020, the maximum that you could take out from your 401k plan for a loan or a distribution was $50,000. Now they've doubled that to $100,000. Also, if you take a distribution, typically, if you weren't 59 and a half, you would get hit with a nasty little penalty from Uncle Sam of 10% of whatever you took out. Now they're saying, nope, you will not, even if you're not yet 59 and a half years old, if you need to take a distribution right now, we understand. Because of this pandemic and this crisis, you can go ahead and take a distribution. They're kind of giving you the same type of rules that apply to what they call hardship distributions that were already allowed for people who could take money out and not get that 10% penalty. But now, if it's something COVID related, you can take money out and get a distribution. Ditto for the loans. You can take out a loan of up to $100,000. Again, no tax consequence. You pay yourself back. If I were to take money out of my 401k, and yes, my husband and I are self-employed, but we also have what's called a solo 401k. If you're an employee, a W-2 worker, you may have a 401k on your job. And again, you'll pay yourself back with interest. No tax consequence for those of you who are taking loans. If you take a distribution and you redeposit the funds, will not suffer any kind of a tax consequence. So that's something good for you to know and to understand as well. In any event, I just want you to know that you can tap into some money if you need to. Now, I'm not honestly encouraging people to do this. Remember, this is money that you're putting aside for your golden year. So I really want to make sure that in general, you only kind of tap into this if you really and truly need it. But I did want you to know that it's available for you. And when you redeposit it, they've given you a couple of options here. First, if you take a loan, you don't have to make any loan payments for a year. And then after that, you can repay the loan over 5 years. Now it gets accelerated. You have to pay it back. It's a little different if you end up leaving your job, for example, if you're an employee on a job. But I just want you to know the process. Normally you'd have to start paying it back immediately, but no, they're saying you can have a year to not have to start repaying that loan. On the distribution side, they're giving you 3 years to put the money back in if you take a distribution. If you take the distribution and you just take it as a straight distribution, again, you don't pay that 10% penalty, but you would have to pay ordinary income taxes on it. Now, let's say you're in a 22% tax bracket. If you take out, $10,000, then you're going to be paying $2,200 in taxes. But guess what? They let you have an option here. You can pay yourself back. You can redeposit the money, even if you take a distribution. They'll give you 3 years to redeposit the money and then no tax consequences. Got it? So I just want to make sure that you guys understood that that is an option. Okay, I'm going to jam through on these last little things. I think I got about 2 or 3 more minutes. All right, let's talk about home ownership. Only 44% of African Americans in this country own their own homes. That compares with 2/3, 67% of whites. So I kind of wanted to know, among those of you out there, how many of you are currently renting or owning? Just drop me a quick note. I'm going to keep talking just so we can keep it moving, but go ahead and drop a note in the chat box and let me know currently. And again, no shame either way. And you might even say why, because frankly, not everybody wants to own. Some people like the flexibility of being able to move and not have to think about selling. Some people have career options and things why they don't want to necessarily own, etc. But tell me again very quickly here, and I'll see in the chat how many of you I see own. Somebody said looking for rent income opportunities. Yep, looking to buy, both relocated to New Jersey, never sold my house in Georgia. Own, a lot of you own. Okay, excellent. Okay, good deal on both sides. Again, I just wanted you to know the options that are available for those of you who are thinking of taking it to the next level and doing things that are productive in a way that can help you in the crisis. My husband and I are homeowners. Again, we own our house here in the Houston area. We also own rental properties. So my house in New Jersey, again, I told you I moved last year from northern New Jersey. We have rented it out, but we have 5 rental properties actually. And again, it's not always all sunshine and roses, So for example, again, during this crisis, our 5 different tenants, people who are paying in different properties, 4 of them did pay, this month, but 1 didn't because he lost his job. We were flexible with him. We were like, understand, you know what? You got a kid, your wife, take care of yourself. It's all good. So, but you have to be prepared if you're going to take that next step and understand the risks also. Okay. What about business ownership? I don't know if some of you have considered starting a business or maybe expanding your business. If you want to jump into the arena though, as an entrepreneur, sisters, you will not be alone. Black women, we're the fastest growing segment of the population who are starting our own businesses. And some of it has to do with factors like the glass ceiling. We're seeing we can't get the same opportunities. Some of it is because we want to have unlimited income potential. Whatever the case, know that expanding or starting a business is one way that you can, in fact, take your finances to the next level. I'm going to quickly close on the small business programs that are available for those of you who are currently business owners. You might have been hearing a lot about these 2 programs, the PPP or Paycheck Protection Program from the Small Business Administration, and EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. In a nutshell, the PPP loan program is a forgivable loan program. They base their loan amount on your monthly payroll times 2.5. Even though the program itself will loan some entities up to $10 million, Most people aren't going to get anywhere near that. So your actual loan amount is based on your payroll times 2.5. How is it forgivable? If you use 3/4 of the money that you get for payroll expenses in the 8 weeks after you receive the money, and you spend the rest on mortgage interest for your for anything business related, it could be your house. If you have a home-based business, or rent for a place that you lease for your business, or utilities, if you spend it like that in those 8 weeks, then your loan will become forgivable. And this is available for all kinds of entrepreneurs, freelancers, gig economy workers. You go through the banks, credit unions, or fintech companies to get those. EIDL, that's a different program. You go through the SBA for this. Loans of up to $2 million. Again, most people aren't going to get anywhere near this amount. But I want you to know, because people have talked a lot about this grant program that is in concert with this economic injury disaster loan. You go through, as I mentioned, the SBA for this, but there's a little bit of fine print there. That grant, you get it after you apply. They say just upon successful application for your economic injury disaster loan, that just for doing the application, you can ask for a grant. Even if you get denied the loan itself, you get to keep the grant. It's yours free and clear. However, there is some fine print. It's $1,000 per employee. So it's not just like everybody's going to get $10,000. So if it's just you as a sole proprietor or by yourself, you can get a $1,000 grant. Okay. On the retirement front, we kind of covered a little bit of this in terms of retirement, the needs for that. I just want you to not forget about the savings on that. Again, because we're in a public health crisis, and unfortunately, many of us are getting sick and or dying. I want you to remember that one thing that is important for taking your finances to the next level is having your documentation in order, doing things like making a will or trust. I know 70% of folks haven't done it, but if you haven't, I want you to give some thought to that. At the end of the day, it's really all about that planning. Just like if you were on the road and you set your GPS and you say, okay, this is the exit that this is the location or the destination I'm trying to get to. You have to do the same with your finances. You have to put in the legwork up front on the financial planning side to think ahead to what goals you'd like to achieve. And it's possible, ladies. Every single one of us can do this. I want you to know that I'm ending this with a message of hope and inspiration. I already told you that I'm a Christian, and I am a person of faith. And I know my God is bigger than COVID-19. My God is bigger than coronavirus. I know it's a global pandemic, and I know people feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much uncertainty. But my personal belief is that it's in God's control. I'm not trying to put my beliefs on you, but what I am saying is that even if you don't believe at all at that level, have faith in the network that brought you into this session tonight. Have faith in yourself. Understand, ladies, you can do it. You can stabilize your finances. You can sustain yourself and your family. You can succeed and take your finances to the next level. Every single one of us has it within her power to do so. And it's my personal prayer for you. It's my personal wish and hope that you will do just that. Learn, absorb this information, share the information, and then act on it and see, won't it change your finances for the better. I'm going to thank you guys so much for sticking with me here and listening. And we're going to now open it up for questions. And I hope you've really enjoyed this presentation tonight of COVID-19 and Black women. Your money matters. Thank you so much again, ladies.
We do have a few questions that I would like to ask. And the first question is going to be related to the CARES Act.
Yes. And
the question is, for the CARES Act, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to the question. For the CARES Act, does it just apply to, when you relate to investments in 401ks, does it only apply to what's happening now with the pandemic, or does it apply to loans or distributions that were previously taken out?
So great question. It does not apply to loans that were previously taken out, but you can have multiple loans. So if you already had a loan, they're like, that's okay, we're good with that. You can have multiple loans. You can, even if you have an IRA, the law specified that if you have multiple IRAs, you can pull money out of multiple IRAs. You just can't exceed that cap, that $100,000 threshold that they've identified.
And then the other question I wanted to ask was related to the stimulus, because I also had this question personally. If you haven't filed your taxes in over 2 years, are you still able to apply for the stimulus? And what is the difference between non-filers and waiting to get your payment?
So again, a great question. And many people are not required to file a tax return. So it certainly does not disqualify you from getting a stimulus check if you just haven't filed, even if you haven't filed in a couple of years. So the idea that most people just need to know is, what was your earnings? And again, some people haven't filed because they didn't meet certain income thresholds, thus they did not have to file at all. But also remember that website that I mentioned, irs.gov/getmypayment. That's the key, because that's where you can go ahead and input your information. You only need to do this. They'll screen you and they'll tell you whether or not you need to do this when you go to the site. You only need to do this if you haven't gotten, say, any kind of a refund check back in recent years, because some people are saying, well, I definitely didn't file my 2019 taxes yet, but maybe they filed their 2018 taxes. They're going to make your income, or they're going to determine your eligibility based on your most recent tax filing, if it was either the 2019 or the 2018. Some people frankly said, oh man, in 2018, I qualified, but 2019, maybe I didn't qualify because I had too much income. Some people who haven't filed their taxes, if you haven't filed your taxes yet, and you know that in 2019, you earned above the $75,000, you might want to wait. Get the check first based on your 2018 income. And I'm not telling you anything shady here. I'm just telling you the law, because honestly, they've even said that it can be based on either one. And again, because the IRS extended the tax filing deadline from April 15th to July 15th, and technically, even if you get an extension, you can wait until October 15th to file. But long story short, the best advice is do what is most advantageous to you financially so that you can qualify and get the check. And if you don't think that they're in the system, if they don't know your banking information or your address, then by all means, go ahead and go onto that irs.gov website, input your banking data. That's to me the very best way, because you don't want to have to wait and get it in the mail May, June, or July.
Thank you. And then we just have one final question that I'll ask before we move on to our other panelists. And that is, someone asked, they said their job cut their salaries but gave them the option to stop their 401k investments. Would you recommend deferring or lowering the payments for 401k investments, or continue with the regular payments?
So my advice here would be based on your own unique circumstances. If you are comfortable to do so, if you have not had a reduction in your income or any kind of impact on you, where the first part of the question, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said that they didn't lose their job. Did they say lower their hours?
They cut their salary. They cut their salaries.
Oh, they did cut their salary. Okay. Well, then that's another story. Okay. So, frankly, again, what's your situation? Did you have any kind of reserve set aside, any savings? Some people may just, in fact, want to dial it back. Certainly, if your income itself has been reduced, you want to preserve cash. You really do want to make sure that you have some funds on hand to be able to deal with unexpected events. We just don't know how long this crisis is going to last. And so people have been asking me things like, should I keep contributing? And I say that if you have a job, then yes. And if you can comfortably do so, then yes, keep contributing. But in this instance, where the pay has been cut, and if it's tight for you, then I think the answer is kind of clear that, yeah, you can dial it back a little bit. We don't like to see this. And of course, this wouldn't be my normal advice, but in times of crisis, yes, you might want to dial it back.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And again, we appreciate all of the information that you shared on the presentation. It was a wealth of great knowledge. We're going to move on to our subject matter experts. Dr. Menon Matthias manages clinical services for the New York area for IKS Health. She is aligned with the clinical leadership for Caremount Medical and has a leading role in implementing population healthcare initiatives and healthcare technology services across enterprises. Dr. Matthias works with the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Bergen County Chapter, and other charitable organizations to address healthcare disparities. We also have Rashmi Ragan, is an attorney with 30 years of tireless advocacy in the economic justice arena. She is an executive director of the Delaware Community Reinvestment Council, advancing economic opportunities through savings, credit banking services, prevention of payday lending, prevention of home foreclosures, financial literacy, and legislative actions. Welcome, ladies.
Madam Matthias Fredericks, I wanted to talk a little bit about, first, the fact that we have, as African Americans, higher comorbidities, which makes us more vulnerable to developing COVID virus. So we're more likely to be exposed to COVID-19 because of our jobs. We are the actual caregivers. We're the transit workers. We are the ones who are working in the areas that make us more prone to developing COVID. We also have more comorbidities. So we have higher rates of diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and this makes us very vulnerable. And the big one is we have less access to medical care, and often we distrust caregivers through a very long line of the medical system failing us. So what do we do? How do we prevent ourselves from getting COVID virus? First, we want to be, as Lynette said, be positive. Of the 2.4 million cases around the world of COVID positivity, 650,000 have recovered. And even though Dr. Fauci, has the head guru in the White House task force, has said that COVID will return in the fall, we can arm ourselves and be prepared. Hand washing, which you've heard over and over again, I can't say it enough, wearing your mask, cleaning any surface you touch. Eat healthy food. I know that's tough when you're in self-isolation, but make sure that you maintain your supplements, your medications, get some exercise every day. Know the symptoms: cough, fever, shortness of breath, loss of smell, tiredness. Usually these symptoms are mild, but if you're getting worse, call a healthcare facility. Your doctor will be able to, using telehealth, telemedicine, be able to decide if you need to get tested. And when you go shopping, don't forget that when you go shopping, you're touching something that might have been touched by someone else with COVID. Keep 6 feet apart. When you get home, wipe down all your groceries before putting them away. So I want to leave you with these thoughts because it's very important that you could recall Dr. Clyde Yancey is a noted cardiologist in Chicago, and he said the most effective strategy known to reducing COVID infection is social distancing. And COVID-19 may be the trigger that is the bellwether event for the United States to finally address healthcare disparities. Thank you. Any questions?
This is Rashmi. Let me jump in. First and foremost, Lynette, you are amazing as always. And if you scroll through all the comments, you'll see powerful, absolutely amazing. A few things that I wanted to touch on. One of them was the stimulus check or the economic impact payment. For many of our communities, particularly Black and Brown families, access to bank accounts is nearly impossible. And with that, if the check comes in a paper check form or on a card, it becomes expensive. So we need to do everything we can to make access to banking easily available. For anyone in the city of Wilmington, Stepping Stones Community Federal Credit Union is there to be able to open an account, no questions asked. For the self-employed 1099s, the Paycheck Protection Program is going to be very difficult because the first round of PPP went to big, large businesses. There was no money left for small businesses and small nonprofits. There is one that has just been signed, second round of PPP. And in Delaware, the Stepping Stones Community Federal Credit Union has partnered with National Development Council to make loans available to nonprofit organizations. The third thing that I wanted to talk a little about is there were 250,000 lenders that make small loans to small businesses that couldn't even access the PPP line. So we are at disadvantage. The Paycheck Protection Program allows small lenders to earn a fee income, but large lenders such as Chase, Bank of America, they were able to make millions and millions of dollars and grow their own businesses. So in all of this advocacy, the credit unions, community banks, they are the ones that are there to help our neighbors, but they are the ones that aren't able to grow themselves. The final piece that I wanted to talk about was we, during this crisis, and as we move beyond the crisis, we have to patronize our corner stores, our local businesses. Yes, certain things are cheaper when you order on Amazon rather than come down to local corner store and purchase it from there. So we really should look for businesses run by Black and brown people and support them, not just now, but moving forward. So I'll take questions now. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to hold questions. They'll be in the chat, but we will get the answers to the questions sent over to the subject matter experts. I want to introduce Sharice Brewington Carr, who is Senior Systems Change Agent in the Government and Human Services Industry sectors. She's a 24-year member, past president of the Delaware chapter, former National Board of Director, and former National Public Policy Chair. Welcome, Sharice.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings, my sisters. This has been a wonderful evening, and I just want to share with you some information about unemployment insurance. You heard Lynette talk about unemployment insurance. I do work also at the Delaware Department of Labor, for those that you're here from Delaware, and we are facing an amazing backlog and overload, system capacity load, if you will, as it relates to COVID-19 and the layoffs and the impact. Say to you all that what's very important is that if you need those resources, you should apply for those resources. That's very, very important. You're entitled to receive those resources. We want you to be able to do that. And we do know that there are some issues right now in terms of navigating that resource and what have you. And I would lend myself, quite frankly, for those of you who know me, that can reach out and what have you and get that information to us, we will help to investigate any of those kinds of issues that are going on. I also want to say to you that one of the things that you can do if you'd like to know a great deal about unemployment insurance, there is a quick little thing you can do. And those of you who are here in Delaware, if you take out your cell phones, you can text semicolon UI facts, that's UIFACTS, semicolon to 555-888 and enroll. And what it will do is it will send you updates as to what's going on with unemployment insurance. We just got that app, we just got that text system yesterday. So I want to share it with all of you if you'd like to know more and have more up-to-date information. Again, that is semicolon UIFACTS, semicolon, text to 555-888. And you can receive information about unemployment insurance. And I will stop there. I think I also have the responsibility of going into next steps. We're going to share with you a resource guide. I think, Lynette, we have the resource guide we can bring up so everybody can see that. And we also are going to send that to you. You heard Lynette talk about different places that you can call and get information in the state, in your various states, in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, Delaware. We want to be able to share that with you, and we certainly are going to, it's in the chat room. Okay. And we're going to make sure that you have that. This is a resource guide. It's got pertinent information on it. This is the information that Lynette talked about, as well as some great resources available to you in your prospective states. Very important. We want you to use it. Now on to the next things. Most importantly, those of us, all of us, we know that, and you've been hearing a lot about campaigning for the census. It is very, very important, particularly now that we enroll in the census. The census deadline has been extended. It was initially April the 1st. It's been extended. And as it's been extended, it gives us more time to participate. These speak to resources that will come into your particular states and jurisdictions, counties, and cities to assist you with support, services, also representation as well. And it's very important that you do that. So please encourage you to do that. Tell everybody you know to do that, particularly for our Black communities, that we need to do that. And lastly, most importantly, as it relates to public policy and advocacy, very, very important that we vote and we begin to participate in voter campaigns, support candidates who believe and think the way that we do, who are helping us as it relates to issues, who are listening to what you're saying, and ultimately making changes as it relates to public policies and laws that impact you and the people that you care about. So I'll stop there. And I think we're going to now pivot over to Gina Burton. And Gina is going to close us out. It's been a thrill for me, and I hope for all of you as well. Thank you, Lynette. And I know that Gina's going to do the closeout for us right now. Thank you so much.
First of all, I would like to thank each and every one who's on the phone, who's on the webinar today, for such a great opportunity that we've had. I love the fact that we've had about 360 wonderful sisters actually register for this webinar. There were such important topics. You see, we face many of the same common issues, and I love that we had the opportunity to have such a wonderful host. Lynette Kafani Cox, the money coach. Your presentation was energetic, it was magnetized, and your content was rich. You are simply amazing. For all of our chat moderators, we thank you for keeping our program moving. You were simply wonderful. I want to give a special thank you and shout out to all the presidents who actually thought about the stresses of the world today, the fact that some of us may have resources and we don't know what to do with them, and that how we were able to bring forth such a wonderful, wonderful presentation to talk about how we can stabilize, sustain, and succeed. All of you rock. For all of the individuals who gave us content information, although you had a few moments, your points were salient. We will remember them. So again, I know that we are in quarantine, but each and every one of you took the time to come out and listen to what these topics really meant to you. And to me, this is a part of self-care. I want to say, continue to protect yourself and stay safe. Again, thank you for your participation. Love you all. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.